Hi, my name is Manuel Billeter, cinematographer, and you're listening to Go Creative Show.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Consoli. I am a director and owner of BC Media Productions, and this is the Go Creative Show, the show dedicated to creative professionals in the video production, filmmaking, television, and music industries. Manuel Billeter is the cinematographer behind the lens of Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and the upcoming Iron Fist, and he joins us to discuss the cinematography of these great comic book TV shows. The Go Creative Show is supported by our friends at Kessler, making innovative tools for filmmakers. Visit them at KesslerCrane.com. Rule Boston Camera, buy, rent, create at Rule.com. Newsshooter.com, essential news for real-world shooters. Shutterstock.com, Hedge for Mac, the fastest way to back up media, and PremiumBeat.com, premium, royalty-free music and sound. So what I love about Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, they're both beautifully shot, first of all. These are two Netflix shows. They look gorgeous. But they have two completely different feels. They're shot differently, but they exist in the same universe. Manuel does a great job of making sure that these shows live on their own, but also have enough similarities that they feel the same and make sense together. And we talk a lot about that. You know, what lenses he chose to get that effect, what lighting he's choosing to get that effect. And there's a lot of things in there that you would probably be surprised by. I certainly was. And we also talk about his upcoming Iron Fist and just a little bit about Defenders. I'm not going to lie and say that he talks a lot about it because he doesn't, but still a little bit about Defenders, really cool stuff, and that's all coming up in just a few minutes. But before we get there, Rule Boston Camera, they have a great new thing. We talk about them all the time because we love them. But they have these events called Learning Labs. And the exciting thing is that they are now starting to live stream some of them on their Facebook page. So January 24th, they have an event called The Introduction to the Panasonic GH5. You heard me, GH5. Everybody wants their hands on this camera. And you can get a sneak peek on January 24th. If you can make it to Boston by 10 a.m., then you can touch it and play with it for yourself. But if you can't, they have a live stream on their Facebook, and then they also will post it on their Vimeo page. So there's 3 great ways to see this thing: as it's happening live, as it's happening on Facebook, or later on Vimeo. Same thing for the next day, January 25th, an event called The Evolution of the Canon 5D Mark IV. Same thing, 10 a.m. These are both free events. They're both streamed on Facebook, and you can get all the information you need over at rule.com, RULE.com. Hedge for Mac. Hedge for Mac is the fastest application for importing and backing up media on OS X. It is a super simple interface, but you're going to find that it's very, very powerful. It's built for video, photo, and audio. And that's because you can import multiple sources to multiple destinations all at the same time. They have a cross-verification engine that makes sure that every file that you copy with Hedge is cross-verified with the original. So you know that everything is being done correctly. So you have peace of mind and you have speed. That's the best part about it, for me at least, and I'm sure all of you guys. It's faster than the Finder. So when you're on set and you're making copies of things, you want something that's going to be fast and accurate, and that's what Hedge for Mac is. Now, there is a free version of Hedge for Mac, but I cannot encourage you enough. Spend the money, get the full version, because then you have all the capabilities that Hedge has to offer. And you can get a 20% discount as well by using the Go Creative Show's name. How about that? So you go to Hedge for Mac, HEDGEFORMAC.com/Go Creative Show. Get your 20% off discount of the full version. Believe me, it's worth every cent. You will be happy that you did. All right, it's time for our spotlight. Manuel Billeter. Comic book television shows have been on the rise and with no signs of slowing down. And 2 of the standout shows in this genre were shot by today's guest. Manuel Billeter is the cinematographer of Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and the upcoming Iron Fist. And he joins us today to discuss his techniques for bringing these characters to life, his lighting, camera, and lensing choices, and even a little sneak peek into the upcoming Defenders. So I'm here with Manuel Billeter, cinematographer for so many TV shows and films that you know and love. But we're here today to talk about his work on Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and this new rise of comic book television shows for Netflix. It's a different world now. Manuel, thank you so much for being on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So first of all, were you a big fan of these comic book series before you got involved in Jessica Jones was your first one for Netflix, right?
Yes, that was my first one. I had never heard of Jessica Jones before. And no, I was not a big fan of Marvel comic books.
Yeah.
I was not exposed to that sort of or to those sort of comics at all growing up. I was reading different kind of comic books growing up. I didn't imagine in my wildest dreams that I would one day work on for a publishing house that is legendary and huge. And has inspired so many people. I mean, maybe it's just because it's more of an American phenomenon, and I grew up in Europe, so it didn't. Maybe that's the reason why it didn't quite register with me at the beginning.
Where in Europe? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Switzerland, in Zurich. And then I lived for 9 years in Berlin before coming to the United States, to New York.
Now, were you working professionally in Europe before coming to the U.S., or did you start working in the filmmaking field here?
I started working in the film. I started working here. In Berlin, I was immersed in studies of cinema studies, film studies, whatever you want to call it. But early on, I figured that actually, working on films was more exciting than talking and writing about it and analyzing them. I got an early exposure through some friends that were students at the film school in Berlin. And I worked on their projects in various capacities, and I was definitely fascinated by the whole process of working together. And so I tried to steer my career towards hands-on filmmaking as well, which did not work out in Berlin. I was rejected by the film school, so it's a very difficult. Application process. It's highly selective, but there were some options, here in New York, to learn hands-on filmmaking, and I took those opportunities.
So you must be a big proponent for film education, seeing as you spent so much time doing it. It's a bit of a discussion on the show because some people are really for it, and some people say, you don't necessarily need it. Just get out there and start shooting and learn that way. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there is not one right path, to become a filmmaker or to be involved in film production. At this point, I must say I'm glad that I did a formal education, which was not, a formal hands-on practical education. What I did was cinema studies. I mean, I was watching a lot of films. I was, it was a much more analytical study than a hands-on creative endeavor. Yeah. So while I was, gravitating towards, hands-on creation, I would say that probably the time spent talking about films, watching films, going to the movie theaters and watching 2-3 films a day sometimes, and really immersing myself, in that dark room, in front of the silver screen, I think probably was invaluable, and I wouldn't want to miss it right now. I think it did give me a very strong foundation in knowledge, and also just by being exposed to so many different aesthetic approaches or philosophical approaches in filmmaking. I think it's only beneficial. So yeah.
Let's talk about Jessica Jones. You had mentioned earlier in the interview that you weren't familiar with that story, you weren't familiar with the Marvel comic world at all. What was it like being added onto that show? Like, did that intimidate you at all before you took the job? That you weren't familiar with it?
No, I wouldn't say intimidated. I was curious to see what the show was all about, and all I had to go by at the beginning was just the script of the first episode, and I mean that's basically my blueprint. That's that's how I approach a project. You read the script, and you hope that you're going to like what you read. In this case, in the Jessica Jones case, I think one of the first sentences of the script describing the aesthetic of the shot that would have to be created by me. It really spoke to me. I mean, in a way, it was incredible that the writing was done at the beginning. I mean, the very first paragraph, the writing very much spoke to me as a cinematographer. So that was that was very exciting to see that how much importance was going to be put on the style of cinematography.
The visuals are really beautiful. I mean, you did a fantastic job. I love that sort of dark feel to it. It lives a lot in the shadows. And I want to talk about your lighting and shooting strategies for that. There's a lot of night exteriors, and I want to start there. I think one of the big things is that the look of a city at night is changing because those sodium vapor lights that we know and love in film are no longer there. They're being replaced by LEDs, and that really changes the way that street lights look at night. But there are so many night exteriors in Jessica Jones, and it has that old school feel. Just how did you achieve that? What were you doing?
I was lucky because at the time when we were shooting Jessica Jones, the city was still immersed in that dirty orange sodium vapor light. Since then, it has changed. Most fixtures have been replaced. I mean, my approach is always, when shooting night exteriors, is like to take whatever is already there, whatever is already existent on location, and then supplement it with with my own lights, with my movie lights. So of course, if the main sources in the landscape are sodium vapor, then I will supplement that with my own fake sodium vapor lighting. Now there was an instance on Luke Cage where between the tech scout, when we actually scouted the location for a night exterior, and the actual shooting. In the meanwhile, they had changed the fixtures. So when we tech scouted, it was the old sodium vapor lights, and when we actually came around a week later to actually shoot the scene, the Cobra heads had all been replaced by those very harsh and cold LED lights.
Oh no!
Oh yeah. So the gaffer and I, Tom Landy and I, we just looked at each other and said, what should we do? Should we just change them? Should we change the gels on our lights, or what can we do? And also, we had already established, part of that scene under sodium vapor lights. So the continuation of the scene should, it just felt natural that it should, continue, under those colors. And so, luckily, we have a lot of resources, and we just went ahead and wrapped all these LED street lights with, a sodium vapor gel, or so at least, the light that was coming from them was consistent with what we were doing. Now, obviously, we could do that because it was just really like one city block that needed our our manipulation. Anything bigger than that, I don't know if that's even going to be sustainable. So I don't know quite yet what to do in the future for these shows when shooting on location at night, because it's a bit of a dilemma. I'll put my thinking cap on and maybe hopefully come up with a good solution.
Luke Cage and Jessica Jones both shot in New York, in the city, and really need to be somewhat in the same world. They can't be a complete departure in the way that they look and feel. But I think you did a good job of differentiating the two. And I'm curious, what were some of your techniques to make them feel different, but also feel similar enough that it's within the same world?
Your point is absolutely right. That was our strategy to make it feel consistent but different, because these are different stories. They're set, in the so-called Marvel universe, but they're also set in a very real New York.
Yeah,
and also because these characters they're intertwined, and there's crossovers from show to show. It shouldn't feel like they inhabit a completely different world that has nothing to do with the other one. Also, realism or being a very important factor here when shooting the shows. We strive to making these shows look grounded in reality, and there's they don't take place in some weird galaxy.
Yeah.
But in order to maintain the same feel but a different one, it's subtle changes really. It's one that comes to my mind now is that for Jessica Jones, whenever we do our night exteriors and we have our big lights up on the condors, I'd use a gel called super white flame. It's an approximation of what the existing sodium vapor lights give, and for Luke Cage, instead of super white flame, which is a somewhat paler version, I went with a more saturated gel choice, urban vapor. So there, already you have it. It's similar. It's similar in feel, but definitely different. And without wanting to be too much on the nose, I wanted it to be still, perceivable to the viewer that that something has changed. So, and in general, the whole color scheme was different in Luke Cage. It had a lot more warmer colors. It had a lot of browns and ambers and some it wanted to be more radiant in that sense, and whereas Jessica Jones had a cooler atmosphere in general, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely felt that. It's more on the blues. Jessica Jones it's more on the blue tones, going into gray. It feels overall less saturated than Luke Cage does.
Yes, that is correct. That was. That's done by design and also very much with the help or with the ideas of our production designer Lauren Weeks. We talked about colors a lot. Cheo, the showrunner for Luke Cage, he really wanted the characteristics of Harlem, with its many different colors, to be a big presence in the show. So so we started with a set design, and it carried over, of course, with my lighting to slightly to employ slightly richer, denser colors. and and also not to apply some color corrections in post that would cool down the atmosphere.
How much of the visual styling for both shows were taken from the comic books?
Not much. I mean, I know that in terms of color schemes for the Alias investigations, Jessica Jones' office, it very much mirrors the colors or the color palette that was chosen in the Alias comics.
Did you feel obligated to get close to it, or did you was there pressure to make it look as close as possible, or were you able to do what you wanted?
No, there was no pressure to make it as close as possible. It's a different approach, making moving images, and I think that we did, and we wanted to tell a story that was compelling, or create images that were compelling for a filmed product. There's certain references, that are present, that are taken from the comic books, but I didn't really dwell too much on the source material because I was afraid that it might be a little bit impeding my own creative process if I was just gonna stick to the graphic novel. However, one of the biggest compliments I ever got for the show was from the author of the original Alias comic series, who thought that that the visual style of the show was very much in. I mean, it was different, but very much in tune with what he had set out to create, many years before in his comics.
What camera package were you shooting on for these shows?
I was shooting with the Red camera. There's a mandate to shoot in 4K, and so at the time there was. There was a Red camera was available, or the Sony, and I chose the Red. The camera is, it's a tool. I mean, it's not dictating a certain style. It's not dictating anything really, except for in this case now, the original resolution of the files.
I was reading when I was reading up on Jessica Jones, particularly that you really felt compelled to stay wider on the lenses and be closer to the talent. And I'm curious where that came from, and if you continued that on with Luke Cage.
And in a way, my lens choice was also driven by the fact that we had to shoot 4K. Now, more resolution is not necessarily always desirable when shooting fiction. I mean, I 100% see the advantage, when shooting a scientific project, or a nature documentary. More resolution is definitely an asset. Not necessarily when you're filming human beings, and when you're filming performances that have their own mythology, if you want. So you don't want to get you don't want to get into the topography of skin too much. Because that might detract from the truthfulness of a performance, of a fictional performance. So in order to counter the overreaching resolution, I opted to shoot with older lenses. Panavision had come out with a version of their old ultra primes when they repackaged them as their P vintage lens series, which basically is older glass. So the characteristics are less inherent sharpness. They're a bit more flawed. Maybe they're not as perfect and as clean as more modern lenses. And I think that that played into the narrative of Jessica Jones,
Yeah.
And it just I thought these lenses added a lot of character to the image, especially on night exteriors, where the bokeh becomes very apparent. And I really loved the way these lenses looked. In terms of lens choice, I mean, this is in terms of lens choice, in terms of focal length, I would. I just prefer wider lenses over telephoto lenses. I'd much rather move the camera rather than just keeping the camera in the same spot and just slapping on a longer lens. I had the privilege, of course, also that or the support to be able to use just prime lenses, fixed focal lenses, as opposed to zoom lenses. I carry zoom lenses, but I tend not to use them at all. They're really just kind of like either an emergency or if creatively we do want to utilize some zooms, then of course then you need it. But I prefer the approach of keeping moving the camera in for a close-up rather than just keeping it in the same spot and putting a longer lens on.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I like the look of that. I like showing the environment. I think it's interesting to see these characters within an environment versus just having them really close up and have a soft background where they really could be anywhere. It just, I think it adds to the realism.
It does, and also, I mean, what it does too. I mean, it also pays homage a little bit to the graphic novel. I mean, graphic novels have they're drawn in wide shots or in wide focal lengths rather than telephoto. So keeping the environment alive, keeping the background alive, I think is very important because it informs the viewer. It guides the viewer, into a certain perception of what's happening. So, especially for Luke Cage, we wanted to very much so. We actually on Luke Cage, I went with wider lenses. Say very, very close to Mike Coulter. I mean, sometimes ridiculously close on a 17, and just really with the camera in his face, basically. But keeping very much the environment alive and his surroundings alive. That was also done, with the purpose of showcasing Harlem, which was, we shot a lot in Harlem. In original locations, so we wanted, since it was our desire to make Harlem some sort of a character as well. There's no other way to achieve that than just go wide.
What were some of the film and TV references that you pulled from for Luke Cage? I think there's something about Harlem. There's something about the way that this show feels and looks. It almost feels like a throwback to some of the blaxploitation films. Curious what your thoughts are.
Well, yeah, I mean, early Shaft was definitely, put on my radar for this show, or any 70s films in a way were mentioned as examples for what the show is about. Godfather, for example. But I mean, there was no. I mean, I wasn't given like a list of films or TV shows and said, okay, this is the way our show has to look like. So just make it like that. I mean, none of that happened. None of that had happened with Jessica Jones either. I mean, we have we give our visual pitch. We give examples of things that we would like to do and of things that what we think that the show should look like. But it's more of a collaborative effort back and forth. I mean, I wasn't handed 2 DVDs and then said, okay, make my show look like this.
You are listening to the PremiumBeat.com Song of the Week. It's called Winter Light by Tiny Music. Premium Beat is where to go for all of your royalty-free music and sound effects. They have a great website where you can access their collection of thousands of royalty-free tracks for as low as $49 each. And it's not just the individual track. They have short versions. They have 10s, 15s, 5s, 30s. They also have loop collections. So for that price, you have quality music, but also incredible flexibility to fit the music into your project. PremiumBeat.com. I love these guys. I use these guys all the time, and I suggest you do too. PremiumBeat.com. All right, it's time to talk about Kessler. Kessler Shutter Dolly is the latest innovation in camera dollies and finally provides filmmakers with the performance and versatility dollies in its class have always lacked until now. The Shutter Dolly utilizes standard speed rails, and it can be operated manually or in conjunction with Kessler's motion control solutions, CineDrive, and Second Shooter Plus. For more information, visit KesslerCrane.com. And lastly, Shutterstock.com. Shutterstock has nearly 3 million royalty-free video clips. You heard me. 3 million. It's insane. And a lot of those clips are 4K, and they're gorgeous. But there are a lot of other reasons to go to Shutterstock.com. First of all, they have music, they have photos, they have an incredible blog. But it's the way that they curate their videos that makes me the most happy. Okay, you go there, you search in the search bar, and you're always given really good stuff. But they have these hand-picked, hand-curated video collections called Director's Choice Collections. I love these. And they're in all sorts of different categories. So they kind of cut down your search time and really only give you the best of the best. Or not even the best of the best, because there's tons of great stuff that don't end up in these collections. But it's like they give you stuff that is exactly what you're looking for. So like urban time lapses, you're going to get really high quality time lapses in urban environments. Around Latin America is another one I've used quite a bit. And my personal favorite, director's cuts, which are shots inspired by famous directors that are really good. So here's the thing, though. Stock footage is not something you just want to purchase willy-nilly. You want to make sure that you're getting good stuff that fits your current project well. You spend a lot of time and energy making sure your stuff looks great. So when you have to use stock footage, you want to make sure it's just as good, if not better. You want it to elevate your project. And you're going to find clips like that in HD and 4K at Shutterstock.com. So just get over there and start looking around, and I guarantee you will be happy. Shutterstock.com. All right. Time to move on to the remaining part of our interview with Manuel Billeter. I want to talk about the way that you shoot heroes because, you know, every film that we see certainly has the stars of the film. They're heroes in their own right, but these are superheroes. And I think that, yes, they do exist in what appears and feels as though to be realistic in real world, but they also have to be ultra super powerful. Is there something in the way that you're shooting them and lighting them that gives them that feel?
I mean, I don't know if, yes, they're superheroes, but before they're superheroes, they're human beings. And that's what makes these shows so compelling is that, you know, they're very grounded and there's not a strong emphasis necessarily on, you know, on their superpowers. I mean, of course, they're present, they have them, but by the same token, they're quite reluctant, you know, to use those powers. They're not, you know, they're not showy, glitzy pieces about superpowers. They're more about the human nature. Of course, you know, there's moments where they step up and, you know, do something heroic and utilize their superpowers to you know, to save someone's life. And you know, and yes, in those moments you try to emphasize their you know, their superhuman aspect. You know, maybe you choose to you know, use, you know, lower angles, to make them appear, bigger than life. But I don't reserve those moments or those angles or that attitude for just those moments, because then it would really feel like it's something completely different, something completely new. So to make those moments appear as normal as anything else, you shouldn't really distinguish or change the style of lighting or the style of composition too much to make them feel like it's to make it feel like it's a separate show.
I think low angles, sort of the idea of shooting low runs through both of these shows. You have hard ceilings that you get to shoot into, which is great. It's certainly helping you with the realism. Is that something that you pushed for, the ability to shoot low into ceilings?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's yes. I push for hard ceilings on Jessica Jones, which at the beginning was met with a little bit of a consternation and worry. But I think everybody then realized that that it was a choice that definitely helped us move along fast and move along efficiently, and most importantly, move along freely, not being dogged down by having to bring in ceiling pieces every time we turned around or chose a lower camera angle. It's important to me to be able to to choose camera angles that are informed by the scenes that we're shooting, and not by the necessity of having to bring in some extra equipment to make it appear like there is a ceiling there when there isn't one. Also, I was hoping that by putting hard ceilings everywhere, that the actors would feel more like it's a real location, it's a real place, rather than having an open ceiling with lights dangling over their heads constantly.
Yeah, I think it would make for a better performance the more they feel like they're in real environments.
Yes, exactly, and that's in my little I've tried to contribute towards that as well.
Can you take a few minutes and talk to us about some of your lighting choices? I read online that there were quite a few chimeras on set, and you actually did an interview for them talking about your use of honeycomb grids and egg crates, and just curious sort of how you've been lighting these shows and what your strategies were.
Yes, you refer to that interview I did with Chimera, which, chimeras they're around. We all use them, but they're also getting a little bit, big and bulky these days. That there's more, and also quite hot too. Which again, having hard ceilings, you like to use units or the unit that is inside under the hard ceiling. It should be as cool as possible. So I used a lot of my gaffer introduced me to these to LED lights that Cineo makes, and they've been expanding a lot their inventory a lot. We had just like a regular size Cineo that it's very powerful. It's very powerful. It's very dimmable. So it's not very dimmable. It's very powerful, or it can be very powerful, and it's also dimmable. So it's very easy to adjust the level to the desired effect. I've been using those also a lot for on Luke Cage. We had actually a portable Cineo called the Maverick that I could just bring in and without much need. They're battery operated, so very often it was a quick fix to get an eye light in at the last minute, and to keep the footprint also very small. I mean, in general, I like wider sources, softer sources. However, they need a wider source, like an 8 by or 12 by frame, also needs a lot of sculpting. So I'll putting egg crates on, or I mean even more so honeycombs. That are very tightly knit, so to speak, tightly knit cutters that you apply directly to the light, so the light doesn't spill everywhere. It just really is focused on the areas that that I want to be lit. So and they also like a huge. I mean, they also have the benefit of making my lighting process very fast. Instead of putting up one huge source and then cutting it down with a forest of flags, you just slap on the big honeycomb and you're about 80% there at that point.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of control. I mean, the whole point of using those large sources is that it's soft and it kind of goes all over the place. But those honeycombs are a really good compromise to having control and not having control.
Yeah.
I love those. I think they're great. I'm looking at the Cineo lighting now, Cineo, Cineo lighting.com, and these look great. I haven't heard of this brand, but I'm just reading up on them as we speak here. A CRI of 98 at 3200 and CRI of 94 at 5600. Certainly really good quality and all different sizes. So these are neat.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely great, and they're very reliable too, and they're very and you can use them again. We made some custom made honeycombs for those lights as well. To apply directly onto them. For the Maverick, we made a little chimera, like a little handmade chimera, which out of cardboard or coroplast. Just like in the good old days during my days on indie films.
Yeah.
And now for Iron Fist, there was a new light that came out from Cineo called the Quantum, and it's a massive light source. It's a 4x4 foot panel of LED that comes with with inner baffles and diffusion and egg crates, and that was. That was a great tool to have, because it's just so versatile. You can use it as a direct source, you can use it as a bounce, and it's and it's absolutely beautiful.
It looks really cool. I'm looking at it right now, and there's a lot of photos of it being used on set. That thing is giant.
It is very giant. It's also incredibly powerful. I mean, you don't want to. I mean, in a way, it's so powerful. You could actually, at night, you could even put it on a condor and just use it as a soft backlight. But it's I mean, we used it a lot on Iron Fist, and I mean, we hardly ever went over 40% on the output. I mean, if you go 100% on that, it's blinding.
So let's take just a couple minutes as we wrap up here and talk about Iron Fist, the third Marvel, comic book TV show for Netflix that you're doing. I mean, they clearly love your work. I know all the listeners here love it. I think it's fantastic. What can we expect from this? I'm sure you can't tell us a lot, but is there something you can give us to clue us in on what we can expect visually, maybe, just to get a sense of where it's going?
You know that I can't really say too much, right?
Of course. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to try.
No, yes, of course. I mean, visually, Iron Fist is a different story. Again, it's a different character. It's a character that that lives in a different milieu than or in a different community, if you want, than Jessica Jones or Luke Cage. So the visuals obviously do reflect that. However, then you have the common threads that go through all these shows, and those will look somewhat similar to what we already know. but hopefully with its own unique characteristics. I think that's probably as much as I can say about it, because it has
we don't want to get you fired. That's for sure.
Oh no.
So what's next for you? Has Iron Fist completely wrapped? Have you moved on to something new? Where are you at?
Iron Fist has wrapped, yes, and it's in the can. It's but next for me is Jessica Jones season 2.
Yep.
And in between, there's not a lot of time in between, so I'm actually really enjoying my time off right now. It's a very important process as well, to be able to just kind of regenerate and recreate. I've shot these three, series back to back, with really only 1 week off in between each show.
Wow!
So it's, there's been prep weeks, before each show, which is clearly, paced a little bit more leisurely than actual production. But still, you're working, and downtime in between shows was rather short, and we've been working many hours, weeks and weeks of a heavy schedule, many nights, as well as you can see when you watch the shows. So all that, it takes a toll. It takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your mind as well. And so right now I'm just
enjoying the slower pace for a while.
Enjoying the slower pace, enjoying the city. Doing things that for the past year and a half were inconceivable. Like it's just walking through the neighborhood and seeing all the changes that have happened.
The world has gone on around you without you even noticing.
The world has gone on. Yes, I was a little bit, encapsulated in this Marvel universe, in this in this production of the Marvel universe. So it's really nice now to to resurface, so to speak, and catch a breath of air. But knowing that quite soon I will be going back for more.
Now, here's a question you probably can't answer at all, but I would be killed online if I didn't ask it. We've established Jessica Jones. We've established Luke Cage. Now Iron Fist. What about Defenders?
No, Defenders, schedule-wise, just it would coincide with my period of creative restoration. Yep. So I probably you can read it online. I don't know.
That's a nice dodge right there. You should be a politician.
Do your digging on your own.
Thank you so much for being on, and we'll have to have you back to talk about Iron Fist.
I hope so. Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
A big thank you to our guest, Manuel Billeter, for coming on and sharing his insights into his talent and craftsmanship. Really great stuff. Those shows are awesome, and you should check them out. So Go Creative Show is free, and we've given it to you week after week for over 100 episodes now. And I ask you one thing in return. Please go to iTunes and give us a great review. You would not believe how helpful iTunes reviews are. I am just finding more and more about this as time goes on, which is why I'm pushing it. But it's super helpful, and it's so easy, and it's free to do. And we'll continue giving you the show, of course, but that's the best way to show us that you love it. So head over there, give us a great review, and we'll give you a big, wet, sloppy kiss. I want to thank Matt Russell from Gain Structure Sound for mixing and mastering and making the show sound so good. Gainstructure.com and on Twitter @GainStructure. And of course, you can tweet us @GoCreativeShow. Let us know what you think of the show and if you have any upcoming, any guest suggestions. Our sponsors, Hedge for Mac, Rule Boston Camera, Kessler Crane, News Shooter, Shutterstock, Premium Beat. Without these guys, we wouldn't exist. So support those that support us.